Minnesota Roadside Attractions is made possible by the Minnesota Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund, with money by the vote of the people, November 4th, 2008.
We start to see roads really take off in the late 19th century. And it is automobiles that really make it explode. Making things that already exist, make them wider, make them better, make them connected to each other. And so those roads are getting into spots that the railroad's never going to go to. The Model T really becomes popular about 1908, 1909. People are able to afford this because it's there for middle-class families, depending on how you want to call it middle class, but it's definitely accessible by a lot of people. These aren't just toys for the rich. The tourism part is coming alongside of it. We start to see actually that the state government is putting funds towards bringing tourism through advertising and things like that. Minnesota actually in the 1930s is the third most popular tourist destination in the country, behind California and Florida. We're developing a reputation of the land of 10,000 lakes, and it's fishing that is really driving it. The resorts are there, they're being built up, and the Back to Nature movement, of course, isn't about being on Main Street in a small town, but these small towns are sort of the service hubs for these places too, and then they're the places that are closest to the trunk highway systems, and so those are the places where people are stopping. And it's also probably the launching point to go to, you know, the resort that they're headed to or the campground that they're headed to. They recognize early on that there's, you know, a new economy, and it was those early business leaders and community leaders that recognized it, and they wanted to tell people about their communities too. And so I think that's what those roadside attractions are sort of so good at, is like it's a great, not even one sentence description of what the community is and what's important to them about it.
Bemidji acknowledged Paul Bunyan earlier than almost everybody else in the United States by building this beautiful roadside statue of Paul Bunyan in 1937. And it just continues to become more popular year after year. In Bemidji, the statue was built for the Winter Carnival in 1937. This was a groundswell out of community stewards of the day. So the actual statue was fashioned after the mayor of Bemidji in 1937. His name was Earl Buckland. Mayor Earl Buckland stood a great 6 foot tall. They tripled his size. So Paul Bunyan, the statue in Bemidji, is 18 feet tall, 3 times the size of the mayor of Bemidji. He's made of cement and like how you'd stucco a house. And they were building him in the middle of the winter, getting him ready for the early January Winter Carnival. Cyril Dickinson would say the lead architect on him. Well, they had a big box covering him, and they're building him down there. They had heat in there and cement and everything. And it's coming up on the day of the celebration, and the town folks are going, is he going to be ready? Are we going to be able to take the scaffolding down around him? And Cyril said, oh, we got a problem, folks. We didn't build the box big enough. We put his head on his shoulders, but we didn't have room for a neck. So they just put the head right on the shoulders, and that gives Paul Bunyan a really unique look. But you go back to 1937, you know, the state wasn't even 100 years old then. Tourism really didn't blossom up here until after World War II, so this was 10 years prior to tourism really coming onto its own. Over the years, they've had a big rifle that was right alongside Paul Bunyan, and many people ask what happened to the rifle. Well, it was wood, and it succumbed to the weather, so it basically deteriorated to the point where it was no longer worth saving. And back then it was like, okay, well, the rifle served its purpose, and down the road the rifle went. Back in the day, you could literally drive right up to Paul Bunyan and Babe, and the shore of Lake Bemidji was immediately behind him. And sometime in the 1950s, late 40s, early 50s, they took out all of the cement streets in downtown Bemidji, and they put all of the fill on Paul Bunyan Plaza. He was so popular, Rotary goes, let's take it to the next level. So the Bemidji Rotary Club commissioned the building of Babe, the Blue Ox, and Babe was not always stationary and planted in Bemidji. He was on a truck, and they would take him to winter and summer celebrations all over the state of Minnesota. And right now today, if you go down to the plaza and you look at Babe's eyes, they're red glass lenses off of a truck from 1938. So when he was mounted on the truck driver would hit the brakes and his eyeballs would pulse. And then he'd step on the gas and the exhaust came out of the nostrils, and you could still see the exhaust pipes in his nose. At one point, they said, let's put Babe right next to Paul, and they had the truck parked down there. Well, people were just going crazy taking these photos, so then they cemented him in permanently.
All right, here we go. 1, 2, 3.
I do know that Kodak, in the early days, said other than the Statue of Liberty and Mount Rushmore, they said Paul Bunyan was amongst maybe even the third most popular photographed roadside attraction. I'm not even really quite sure if they thought Paul Bunyan and Babe were going to be around 75, 80 years after they built him, but he's withstood the test of time, and the love and the popularity is definitely there today.
Well, I know he's over 30 feet tall just sitting or kneeling. If he stood up, they say he'd be 55 feet tall. We claim in this little town of Akeley, we claim to be the birthplace simply because the first printed word of Paul Bunyan was here. There was a legend started like in Maine with the lumbermen, and it was moved to Michigan and Wisconsin, Minnesota, and later on to Oregon and California. But right when it got to here, it was still just word of mouth. A guy by the name of Laughlin that worked for T.B. Walker in the Red River Lumber Company, he used it in the advertising and printed. That was the first printed word about Paul Bunyan. It was an invention of Dean Kreutzer, who in 84 and 85 he put that up. I think that Dean Kreutzer approached Jerry Stevens and Louis Carl. He approached those two and showed them a picture of what he could draw. They paid Dean Kreutzer to go ahead and make a model of it, and then he made the statue. He did most of the pre-work out to his place south of town. It's got a metal frame and then fiberglass cover. Then they moved the frame in, and later on he built the head, and then they brought that in and put it on a hoist and put it on top of it. If you stood here very long, if somebody stops and takes a picture, it's the most photographed item in Hubbard County, I'm sure of that. So you can sit in the hand and take pictures that way. stop here, they might stop at the general store across the street or one of the gas stations or perhaps a liquor store or one of there's a couple of antique stores, and so the city gets a lot of benefit out of it, it's obvious. Yeah. I think Mr. Kreutzer had a pretty good idea. You got to give him the credit. It's an asset to the city.
Hello down there. I believe I see Anna and Ryan, Gavin, Ava, Ty, Maya, and Rose and Violet. Roses are red, violets are blue. Come on up here, youngsters. I'd like to have a picture with you.
This is Paul Bunyan, and he's in Brainerd, Minnesota, 7 miles east of Brainerd, actually, between Garrison and Brainerd on Highway 18. He's 26 feet tall, sitting, excuse me. He's got size 80 boots. Chicago Fair actually had him there. They had built the statue for that fair, and when the fair was over with, Larry Lopp out of Brainerd decided to go and buy that and bring it into the town of Brainerd. It was in the Lopp family for many, many years, and then the McFarlands, actually the daughter of the Lopp family, took it over.
Oh, here's a big wave back at you, Deacon.
The Lopp family actually brought it into Brainerd for the resort side of things, to get the draw into the Brainerd area so people would come here to stay. And Madden's, Craigan's, all of those guys were actually involved in this, in the bringing here of Paul Bunyan.
Smile for money.
The amusement park was going to shut down. City of Baxter wouldn't help him out, keep him there. I actually went in to buy a log house and a little train that was there to put with our museum. And when I did that, I actually walked out that day buying the whole park.
So big.
In 2003, we actually bought the park and moved it out here too, in between Brainerd and Garrison.
Yes, I was at the old location for more than 50 years, and I've been entertaining this neck of the woods for more than 70 years.
He was part of an amusement park right away. He was going to be a statue that met everybody that come into Brainerd on 210 and 371 there. And when that started to get real big, they put an amusement park with him with a lot of different buildings, that type of stuff. And when they did that, that actually was a good draw for the Brainerd area. It was huge for the Brainerd area.
Hello down there.
There's so many people that actually come back for the history of it, and they'll bring their grandkids back here, and they'll tell them about the first time that Paul had ever talked to them, knew their name, knew what they were doing, why they were here, all of that kind of stuff. So it's been a draw for years and years and years and years. A lot of the same equipment is here, a lot of the same statues are here. For instance, the squirrel, Henry the Squirrel's here. He's been around for about 40-some years. So that all that kind of stuff is here, so they can actually take pictures with their siblings now and mark them with the pictures that they used to have.
Have a great day.
How do you know her name?
He's smart. He's smart, and actually he's real good friends with Santa Claus. So, I mean, he knows everybody, whether they've been naughty or nice or whatever, and he actually talks to Santa Claus every winter, so there it is.
Only I work during the summer, he works during the winter. He's got a beard, like me, and lives up in the North Pole, and works during the month of December, flying reindeer. One night, Yes, it's a big responsibility, but I manage.
We are in Hackensack, Minnesota, the home of Lucette Diana Kensack, located in the shores of beautiful Birch Lake. Lucette is the creative masterpiece of Dode Schroeder. He was an old-time resident and store owner in Hackensack. In 1950, he constructed her out of a wooden frame and shaped with boards and metal lath, and added some insulation and a good portion of cement and sand. There were volunteers that helped him out. It took a lot of work to make a woman that was 17 feet tall. In '51, they had a national contest to choose a name for her, and a gal from Iowa submitted the name Lucette Diana Kensack. Lucette is maintained by the city of Hackensack. They paint her and clean her and take care of her, and even in January they put a 20-foot shawl on her in time for Back to Hack, which is our winter celebration. In 1991, a high wind toppled her head off. Then she had to have extensive repairs, and that's when they found out she was pregnant. Paul Jr. was joined by her side, and now he resides over by the old city jail. Lucette grew much faster than any other children, and her parents were in need of a bigger room for such a large girl on the family farm in Iowa. Her aunt and uncle had a Northwoods logging camp and asked for help to run their camp. So Lucette came up to Minnesota to help them out. Once she arrived here, they realized they needed a bigger room for her to be. They called upon Paul Bunyan to level some trees and make a building. Paul arrived, and with one swoop of his axe, he leveled enough trees to make her a home. When Paul came to Hackensack to work on the home for Lucette, one day while he was out in the woods, he ran into her. And being she was more a suitable size to him, I think they fell in love instantly. They had a suitable courting period and were married on June 9th in the Iowa Territory in 1938. The actual marriage certificate and wedding band is on display at the Visitor Center. On June 27, 1952, the first Sweetheart Days was held in honor of Lucette. Sweetheart Days has been a celebration since then, so coming up in 2022, it will be the 70th anniversary of Sweetheart Days. There are many tourists that come by to pose in front of her, get a picture of her. I see a lot, being the Paul Bunyan Trail is right here. Lots of bicycle riders come through town, always want to stop and have a picture taken with her, so she does get people to come into this part of our town.
It's Willie Walleye. We're the walleye capital of the world. It's our trophy fish from Lake of the Woods. The person that did it had an amazing vision. You know, the local businessman that built it with some of his kids, and he had some pretty good foresight. The Lund family was really involved with it. The Olsons were the people that did it originally. And there was a couple other families that helped, you know, do a lot of the work and had the ideas. They're all volunteers. They didn't get paid. It was some fathers and then some sons, and some family members that did all the work. They actually molded it after a fish that was caught on Lake of the Woods, and it used to sit in a hardware store up here. So it was actually molded and designed after a fish from Lake of the Woods. There's actually a plaque up there that we dedicated to the family that originally had the idea and had the foresight, and you know, that got involved and did it. The original walleye we replaced about 3 or 4 years ago. It was 60 years old. The old one was getting so bad that it was just time that we needed to replace it. The other one was a rock and chicken coop wire, so it had all just rusted out over. It was 60 years old, so it served its purpose. We had it built down in Sparta, Wisconsin, by a corporation down there that does stuff for parks. It does slides and different things for water parks and different. It was a really cool process that we went through. It was really interesting. It's sitting a little bit higher. We raised it up just a little bit, but it's the same, almost identical. In fact, we made several trips down to Sparta. We seen things that we didn't look like it was right, so we had them, make it a little wider, make it just so. We wanted it to be dimension-wise the same. Texture-wise, it's not going to be the same because it's a fiberglass replica, and the other one was plaster, I guess plaster, like they put on the side of houses or whatever. I've worked at the VFW here 20, almost going on 30 years, and I get to look out the window and watch all the people stop and get pictures taken there. And I was leaving work one day and 2 buses stopped there, and there must have been about 100 and some people standing in front of it. And people share, we have people on our community sites and stuff that shows pictures from a long time ago. Even generations, they'll have their kids, and then their other family members will come along and taking trips up here. I mean, there's somebody there all the time getting pictures. And it's a great tourist attraction right on the highway there. You turn right there to go to Canada, so we get all the traffic that goes into Canada. Yeah, no, it's amazing. We love it.
Well, it's the world's largest tiger muskie, and it's 30 feet long. They started out with world's largest muskie, but they changed it to tiger muskie because of Hayward, Wisconsin. It's made of lath, and then they stuccoed it and painted it. 1948-49, they decided with the new businesses in town and the new lumber yard that they would have an attraction of some kind to get people to come to town. The fellow down at the Gateway Station, Warren Ballard, had been working with muskies in Lake Beltane, so he thought they should build a big muskie. And he was a taxidermist, so he knew the structure of how a fish was built. They agreed, decided it should be 30 feet long and that they would have it in town here. So he started building it, and then he had help from a few people, and they got it done. And in '49, they had a big celebration, and they called it Eddie Loft Days because Eddie Loft started the lumber yard. And then they thought, we better do this every year. So they decided to do it the next year and call it Muskie Days. One year, I know my husband helped redo the fins on it because they got damaged, and the teeth, first they were wooden teeth, and people climbed in there and damaged them, and so they made them out of metal. Well, then that was dangerous, so that has no teeth anymore.
Touch its tooth, touch its tooth. Ouch! Reach all the way back in its throat. Can you reach way back there?
It's been a good thing for the Muskie Days event, and a lot of people stop and have their picture taken by the muskie. My daughter had her picture taken in her wedding dress by the muskie. When it was first put in here, there was nothing here, and except a little shell of a place that was used for a food stand, and since then they've added this whole park. It's been a very good thing for Nevis.
Well, this is Pelican Pete. He's the world's largest pelican. And he's 15.5 feet tall, and he was made of 120 bags of cement. Well, they can just look and see him, and we don't have any signs that point to him, but I think most people when they come to town know he's there, and it's just right by the rapids that we have. A lot of people say, I remember this when I was a kid. And now they're bringing their kids here and their grandkids here, and a lot of people walk down there and get their picture taken by it. That's a big thing. The kids like to go down and walk down there and get their picture taken. He was built 64 years ago, and we just had a 60th birthday party for him, and we had cake and everything for him back 4 years ago. And he was just put there because a group of people decided we needed something in town to identify ourselves. And we're Pelican Rapids, so they thought, a pelican. Truman Strand, who started Strand's Hardware, was the guy who started the project, and he had got a bunch of his friends to help and engineer the project, and local city people that got together and they had expertise in building things like this, and they just built it. When it was built, they had the metal frame built and everything, and then our local Lake Region Electric Company took their big boom trucks and moved it into place so they could put the cement around it and everything. It was just a fun project to do. We don't know exactly how, but somebody found it on the internet that they were trying to build a pelican that was big, a little bit bigger than the one we have down in Australia. But because of the COVID came along, they had to scrap their project. So we still have the world's largest pelican because they were going to try and up us one. He identifies us, just like a lot of the landmarks that everybody else has. When you come to Pelican, you think Pelican Pete or the world's largest pelican, because otherwise we'd just be another town.
This is the world's largest turkey sculpture. It was put here in 1998. At that point in time, we had actually Swift Eckrich largest turkey production per capita plant here in Frazee. #1 plant. #2 was in Detroit Lakes. And so with all the turkey farms around the area, the turkey growers got together and they put up this monument to the industry. And previously in 1986, there was a white one here that was paper mache and mesh and other things that actually burnt down. Well, they were doing some work on it and it caught fire. Well, they had a hole at the top and they were doing some work with a torch on the bottom, and it went up just like starting a log in a chimney. And within 7 minutes, it was gone. This one is actually made of fiberglass on a steel frame, and it's 22 feet high. It kind of identifies us amongst the other quirky animals that are in the area. Big Tom here kind of looks over our city beach and the main entrance to our city here off of US Highway 10. It's a great gateway to come in and meet some of the people in Frazee. And a lot of times there's people running around the park here behind me, the Lions Park. There's kids that come up here and play in the playground. Mothers bring their small kids up here and spend some time up here. And a lot of people just come here because it's very calming over above the Otter Tail River over here, which is a state water trail. Well, I tell you, I think he'd be pretty tough if we had to cook him up. But just a few weeks ago here, we had our annual Turkey Day, 67th Turkey Day celebration, and we cooked up 600 pounds of turkey drummies, our sportsman's club, for that event. And we always have a big turkey luncheon on that day too. So turkey is still in here, even though a lot of the smaller operators are no longer in it, have retired after some of them 2, some 3 generations of being involved in the turkey processing business or raising business. When you go around the tour of the lakes, it's interesting to see what has some value to each community. You know, what they figure like gives a representation to them, to the rest of the world. And the big turkey, Tom, does that for Frazee, outside of wrestling.
What you're looking at behind me is the iconic Vergas loon. You know, if you come to Vergas, you're going to see the loon. In the late 50s, the fire department decided that we needed something to kind of signify this is Vergas and bring people to town. How they came up with the loon was, number 1, it's the Minnesota state bird, but number 2, of all of our lakes in the area. And at any point, you can see loons on one of the many hundreds of lakes just around in the Vergas area here. And they thought, why not have some iconic, huge statue of a loon overlooking the lake? We had a postmaster here back in the 50s. His name was Ewald Kruger. And he came down here every day and would plant trees, he would water them, he would try to get the park so that it would be a good place not only for his kids but for visitors to come to. Well, then the fire department decided that we would put a loon here. 4 people on the committee, Roger Hansen, Cal Bervin, Roy Brune, and Gordon Dahlgren, all firemen, and they started raising money. I think of raising money today and it's a little ominous because you know how much things cost and that, but they had to raise $2,000. That was a big deal back then. And the fire department kicked in the first 100. They found somebody who had carved a small loon out of wood, a standing up one, and that's what they ended up that they wanted, was this standing up loon. And they got a hold of somebody by the name of Orville Nettestead, who took on the project of the welding of the structure of it, getting that all done. He did that at his home, 20 feet. I mean, these guys were not talking a small loon. They wanted something that was really going to stand out, and so it's a 20-foot loon. When I stop and think of all those different people that were involved, that to me epitomizes small towns. You started out with a small group of the firemen and 4 people, and all it took was just asking this person, this person, this person, and you get so many different people involved, and they just kind of became invested in the project. In 1963, they hauled it here, and they planned a dedication. And I mean, this wasn't just like, oh, I'm going to have 5 people here, and we're going to say, we're going to dedicate this loon. They did it up big. They had, the band was here, they had skydivers, they had clowns, they had, I mean, just hundreds of people were lined up to get ready for the dedication. And you look at the pictures and they're all dressed up in their Sunday finest. It was probably on a Sunday afternoon. They had a podium set up and they had it dedicated to the gentleman who first started getting the park to be nice, Ewald Kruger. And so you'll see on the base of the loon, it says Vergas Loon. It's the Minnesota state bird, a community project sponsored by the Vergas Fire Department. And it was dedicated in 1963 in memory of Ewald G. Kruger, the postmaster. So here was a postmaster of the community that just loved his park, and he kind of got everybody all going and probably planted some little seeds of ideas in people's heads, and it just took off. I know that the community club has kind of taken the, well, everybody in the community of Fergus takes the loon on as their own if you're from this area, but we make sure it gets painted. At Christmas time we put a little wreath around its neck, and so it's all lit up. I just love seeing families sitting there taking their picture with it. I mean, they're driving by and all of a sudden they'll stop and then they'll come back and they'll stop back down there, and the families will get out of the car and run over and take their picture. And I mean, who knows, maybe celebrities have even been down there. That would be kind of fun to think of that. When you talk to people and say, hey, do you know where Fergus is? And they're like, oh, is that where the loon is down at the beach? You know, businesses come and go, unfortunately. People come and go, but this loon, I don't think it's going to go anywhere for a while. And it's been here since the early 60s. Gosh, it'll be fun to have generations going down the road that just say, yeah, I live in Fergus, that's where that big loon is. But it's also important for those people to understand how it began, too. I mean, that's why that's so much fun to be able to tell this story, because that loon didn't just happen. It was an idea, and it was a lot of work by community guys, and it does mean a lot to the community of Fergus. Make sure you stop down at the loon, have a picnic, you know, take the kids swimming and just look over the lake, because if you're there at the right time of day, you know, just as the sun is going down or the sun coming up, I mean, you're going to definitely see loons on the lake too.
This is an oversized river otter built in the fashion of the great Minnesota roadside sculptures that you see throughout the state. It is one of the largest otters in the world, if not the largest otter statue in the world. It was constructed in 1972 as part of the Fergus Falls Centennial Celebration, dedicated on the 4th of July holiday in 1972. It was the project of a group of high school students under the direction of Mr. Steve Janish, who was a local metal worker, metal artist. So they framed it, and then a local plasterer contractor, a man named Vince Kildee, did the plaster work. It was a real community project. There was no outside help, no outside company or artist, but done by high school students with some help. And then it became a project sponsored by the Fergus Falls Jaycees. It's owned by the city of Fergus Falls. It's located in Adams Park here by Grotto Lake. And so the city maintains it. They do the lawn mowing and so forth. It was built so well that very little maintenance is required of this. It is just, it's not going anywhere. And despite the severe winters and all the snows and the rains, the otter stands the test of time. The nickname of our otter sculpture is Otto the Otter, and it really has become a community icon. You can see there's a picnic table at the side of the otter. That becomes the base for people kids and adults to climb up on the back of the otter. And so the imagery of Otto the Otter is used in promotion, it is used in the marketing of Fergus Falls. It is in essence Fergus Falls. It just is another added attraction. It's part of our lore, part of our history now, and this is what makes communities unique. A young woman named Bonnie Olson, who was writing for the Otter, which was the high school newspaper, and so when the statue was being conceptualized, she wrote a little tongue-in-cheek piece. She said, "Visualize, if you can, the unveiling ceremony of the great otter. The Pelican Rapids pelican can cut the red ribbon around the neck, while Brainerd's Paul Bunyan lets it sit on his lap, and in the background, the Fergus loon sings, 'Welcome to my world.' It should be quite an event."
We are in Rothsay, Minnesota. Right behind me is what we call Big Boomer. He's our large prairie chicken roadside attraction. And people call him all sorts of names. We call him the Big Chicken, Big Boomer. The Prairie Chicken Society likes to call him that. You know, if you've traveled on 994 between Fergus Falls and Fargo, North Dakota, you've passed some plenty of times. We're fortunate enough to have a truck stop. You probably hear some trucks come back and forth a few times. It's amazing how many times we have people here just stopping and having a quick break, having a lunch, people taking pictures with it. There's a Twitter feed that shows like the Minnesota roadside attractions or something like that. You'll see the Prairie Chicken posted in quite a few pictures. I see families do Christmas card pictures with them from the area. It started, back in the mid-70s. This is kind of like the south end of the natural prairie chicken range, and the Minnesota Prairie Chicken Association was working with some people locally, and they wanted to kind of proclaim Rothsay as the prairie chicken capital of Minnesota. The next summer, we had the bicentennial for Rothsay, so they wanted to have something to kind of celebrate that with. One of the members of the board, Art Fossey, who is from Rothsay, basically said, "Hey, if we can make this happen so Rothsay is the prairie chicken capital of Minnesota, I'll build a statue." Once that was all kind of detailed and confirmed and they were able to state it as the prairie chicken capital of Minnesota, Art Fossey went to town on it. He worked with the Prairie Chicken Society. He went down to the cities to some museums and took a bunch of pictures of mounted prairie chickens and brought those diagrams back, and actually went in the school auditorium and blew it up like 5 or 6 times the size of what the prairie chicken is, and then started sketching everything on cardboard. After he kind of got the whole plan sketched up, he ended up working with the school and some local welders around the area. It's all welded frame, and the school kids went inside and started plastering everything. So it's a big I-beam that's kind of like the backbone, and then it's just a bunch of metal rebar that was shaped to form the prairie chicken based off of the drawings that Art came up with. So it was finished, I think it was like early summer, so like June, or maybe the end of May of 1976. Where Rothsay sits at is it's like a narrow beach of Lake Agassiz. And then after everything dried up, this just became a natural prairie. It doesn't grow tall prairie grass, and that's what attracts the prairie chickens. And so in the spring, it's a ruckus, right? They're stamping their feet, their orange puff pockets all come out. They do a little dance for the ladies. It's pretty fun to watch if you ever get a chance to get in a blind and watch it in the spring. It's great. We don't have to do a lot with them. The plaster is really held up pretty well. The paint that they use is an oil-based paint, so it doesn't need a whole lot of TLC throughout the years. There's a couple of things specifically on the cheeks that we probably need next year come back and touch that up again, but the rest of it is really pretty good. Last year we had planned a Light Up the Chicken party, but with COVID we had to put it off, but we're planning for it already this year. So last year we had a bunch of Christmas lights strung around the trees, and we had a Christmas hat made for it, and yeah, it was a lot of fun. A lot of people had fun with that and taking pictures and visiting it. And we're gonna do a little bit more this year, so it'll be kind of fun to make that a tradition and get more of the community involved. One of the fun things about it, right, is you know, if you meet somebody, I'll meet somebody in Minneapolis or I'll, you know, someplace locally in the Midwest, and, you know, if they've been through here and I'll say Rothsay, they'll say, oh, I've been there, I've seen the prairie chickens. It's really interesting just how many people have been through here and have seen it and taken a picture of it or had a picnic lunch here or something like that.
We're in Nyberg Sculpture Park in Vining, Minnesota. It started as a joke. When I made my first sculpture, I made a family tree for a couple who over in Henning were getting married and they needed a family tree. So I built it just out of scrap, just in a hurry, just a dumb looking thing. But we put it up in their yard when they were on their honeymoon. And it had their names on a plate on the bottom, and on the fruit on the tree had first names with years in advance. After that, I thought of the foot, and everything has happened since that. It certainly wasn't planned. Shortly after that, they built this place. That square knot, it was the first one in here, and it would have been immediately after it was built. It's all steel and welding. It's all welded up. There's a structure inside of them, which consists of a lot of rebars and also old pipes and angles from boat lifts or docks or whatever I happen to get. Well, the watermelon is because we have Watermelon Day here, and we've had it for 50 years. After I got going on this sculpture thing, a lot of folks in town would ask me, when are you going to build a watermelon? And this went on a few years, but I finally did it. That's kind of crazy too. I just decided to build a spoon. Well, in the process, I'm thinking maybe I should have something besides that. So then I built a knife, and now it's the question how to mount them. And so I decided maybe they should have legs and arms and be dancing. It's a sculpture of an astronaut, and it's not actually my daughter, but it's because of her. Actually, before she got in the program, we were down in Houston, and we were taking pictures of a wall with there was a hole in it. They put their face in it, and there was a picture of an astronaut flying around, and that's when I kind of decided I should make one. My son was after me for a while to make a hand throwing a football, so I finally caved in and did it. Most of it has no real reason. It's just something to do, something different. I might wake up at night thinking of something, or think of some things and I let it go by the wayside and think of, go with something else. So it's hard to describe that one. I really don't have a favorite. A lot of people ask me that, and usually when they do, they'll tell me their favorite. Well, my background is just what you see. I didn't do it as a younger person. I don't know, I was in my, I suppose, close to 40 or something when I started. Never had any training, never went to school for it or anything like that. It just happened. A lot of people have come to town just for this. They've seen it on TV, different places, and so they'll make a special trip to look around. Well, it's been pretty interesting. I'm sure there's a lot of people that don't give a hoot about it, but an awful lot do.
This is the world's largest hockey stick, more commonly referred to as the world's largest freestanding hockey stick in Eveleth, Minnesota. It came on the 15th of September, 1995, and it's been here for 26, 27 years now. A group of businessmen meet every Monday at the local cafe, and one morning the topic was, what could we do to help bring more people into town? And the topic lent towards an attraction of some sort. And of course, with a hockey theme, we discussed some things, but one of the fellows had an idea of a huge puck sitting down in the downtown area that might get people to turn into town. In checking into whether or not we could put a puck, we wanted to get it in the World Book of Records if we could, so we checked, found out that it would have to be made exactly the same way, and that caused some problems. So another party from the Hockey Hall of Fame said, why don't you think about a stick instead of a puck? So we went in that direction. We contacted Christian Brothers up in War Road who manufactured sticks, made an appointment, contacted them, asked them if they would consider building this stick, showed them a scale model. And in fact, they said, yes, we would like to do that. We have ties to Eveleth, Hockey Hall of Fame, and hockey in general, and we would like to provide that stick to Eveleth. It's got their name on the side to this day. So yeah, it's very appropriate. All the kids in school got let out the day that left on a truck, and so they could wave it off, and followed down with the High Patrol all the way from War Road and to a great reception here on the main street, and that's when it all started. 2007, I believe, the second one came. We wanted a hockey stick built the same way, and that's how it was built, just exactly like the regular ones. But if you leave a regular one outside, it starts to deteriorate. We hadn't planned on that, so it did deteriorate, and it was determined they needed to replace it with something a little more weather resistant. It's made of similar materials. It's a little bit longer, a little bit heavier, but also made with more of a marine type material that will withstand the weather. And even something like that, as you can see, it's been there for quite a few years, and it weathers like the real thing would, but it's not to a point of being dangerous or falling over. It's doing its job, bringing people to town. Robert Mars Company owns conveyor belt service up here, and they asked if they could provide that puck. So it was baked at 265 degrees for 3 hours. That's how you bake a hockey puck. Just a perfect community event where everybody was pitching in. Just a lot of community support, contractors especially, that would dig the holes and put the foundations in. The hardware store across the street donated his wall so we could put a mural on it. And so it was a lot of that, and it had good legs because it just made sense. It was bringing the theme downtown, and that's where we needed it, and it was the right theme, being hockey. So it did what it was supposed to do. It got some people to come downtown. People that come downtown should be somehow told to go to the Hippodrome and to go to the Hockey Hall of Fame. People that go to the Hockey Hall of Fame should be suggested to come downtown and go to the Hippodrome. So now there's a circle of people that are getting into town, and that was the idea. And so it's working, and there'll be busloads, there'll be weddings, have their pictures taken out there. Paul Wellstone, Henry Boucher, a lot of hockey players, a lot of politicians had their pictures taken around this hockey stick in Eveleth. It's been a good thing to bring people to town. It's been healthy, and it makes sense. I'm just curious how long it'll stay there. Hockey history will go on forever, and as they continue to build that plaza over there with the statues and the other information, it's a wonderful growing tree is what it is of hockey in this town, in the downtown. Not to take away from Hockey Hall of Fame, but that's on the highway. And this was intended to bring people downtown. So I think it'll be a good thing to watch over the years, and it'll be fun.
These roadside sculptures were meant to be an attraction for a community, and they've worked. They're quirky, they're unique.
She does get people to come into this part of our town.
It was an idea, and it was a lot of work by community guys.
It's an asset to the city.
it's interesting to see what has some value to each community.
I think that's what those roadside attractions are sort of so good at. Is like it's a great, not even one sentence description of what the community is and what's important to them about it.
Minnesota Roadside Attractions is made possible by the Minnesota Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund, with money by the vote of the people, November 4th, 2008.